Hi everyone, today we're going to be working on Unit 3 LT3 notes, basic factoring with the reverse box method. So the steps for factoring using the reverse box are, number 1, you're going to set up and solve the x just like we did in the last lesson. Number 2, fill in the box. 3, pull out your greatest common factors. And 4, write out your factors. So let's start with this first one. If you remember from our last lesson, first we have to identify our A, our B, and our C. So my A for this one is going to be my 2, my B is my 7, and my C equals my 3. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to set up my X. And on the top of the X, I need my A times my C, and that's going to go right there. So 2 times 3 is going to give me a 6. And then remember my B is my bottom. So that's my 7, and that's going to go down there. Okay, now I find all my factors of 6. So I know 1 times 6 is 6. I know 2 times 3 is 6. And now I'm at 3, so I'm already done factoring. Okay, so I'm thinking what multiplies to 6? Well, I've already figured that out, but what adds to 7? Well, the 2 that add to 7 are this 1 and this 6. So I'm going to have a 1 here and a 6 there. So now that I have that, I'm going to rewrite the polynomial. So the polynomial is this whole thing right here. But I'm going to split up that B term. So this B right here, this 7x, I'm going to replace with this. I'm going to have a 1x and a 6x. So let me show you that here. So I'm going to start with my 2x squared. That stays the same. Instead of saying plus 7x, I'm going to say plus 1x, which I got right here, and then plus 6x, which I got right here, and then I'm just going to end it with my C term, which is this 3, so plus 3. I'm going to put parentheses around these first two and parentheses around those second two, and I have to figure out the GCF in the first two and then the GCF in the second two. Well, when I think of what goes into 2x squared and 1x, I know I can take a 1 and an x out of them. So I'm going to divide this by 1x. I'm going to divide this by 1x. And then if I'm thinking of my next set, my 6x and my 3, I know I can take a 3 out of this, and I can take a 3 out of this. So I'm going to start by putting what's on the bottom of my first set out first. So because I have a 1x that I'm dividing by, I'm going to take my 1x and put it out front. And now I'm going to divide out what I have left out. So 2 divided by 1, so I'm back right here. So 2 divided by 1 is 2. And x squared divided by x just leaves me an x. I'm going to say plus, and now I am right here, 1x divided by 1x. Well, 1 divided by 1 is 1. And then x divided by x, I have no x's left, so I'm just going to close that. There's nothing left there. Then I'm going to say plus 3, and I'm getting that 3 from right here, from this 3, well, these 3's basically, right there. So that 3 is going to come out front, and I'm going to start a new set of parentheses. And now I'm going to take that 6 divided by that 3. So 6 divided by 3 is 2. And I still have that x. I don't have an x on the bottom, so I still have that x that's left over from right here. And then 3 divided by 3 is 1. So I'm going to say plus 1. Okay, Now that I have that, when you're done, your insides should match. So when I'm looking at my insides, if this 2x plus 1 matches this 2x plus 1, you know you did it right. Those have to be the same. So to finish this off, I'm going to take what's on the inside that are the same. So I'm going to do 1 parenthesis 2x plus 1, and then I'm going to close it. And then I'm going to multiply it by what's on the outside. So what I have on the outside right now, find a good color, is this 1x and this plus 3. So now I'm going to put that in my second set of parentheses, 1x plus 3. And that is the final product. That's what you want for your answer right there. Okay, so let's do the same with number 2. First, I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. Remember, my A goes with my squared, so that's a 3. B, just with your x or your variable, just your regular variable, not your squared, so that's going to be a 16. And then your C is all by itself. It doesn't have a letter. I'm going to make my x. I'm going to multiply my A times my C. Oops, that's the wrong color. I think I've been using yellow, so let's change that to yellow. My A times my C, and I'm going to put that on the top. So 3 times 5 is 15. So that 15 goes there. And then remember, my B is my bottom. So this 16 is going to go down there. I'll put my 16 down here. Now I have to find all my factors of 15. So I know 1 and 15 and 3 and 5. Okay, well, if I want those to add up to 16, the only two numbers that add up to 16 are 1 and 15. So I'm going to say 1 here and 15 here. Okay, so now my next step is to rewrite splitting that B up. So this 16 is now going to be replaced with 1x and 15x. So we're going to start at the beginning. That stays the same. So I'm going to say 3x squared. Now I'm replacing 16 plus 1x plus 15x plus 5. I'm just ending with my C value. Once I have that, I'm going to group my first set together and group my second set together and find the greatest common factor. So I want the greatest common factor between 3x squared and 1x. Well, I know I can take a 1x out of here and a 1x out of here. And I can take a 5 out of here and a 5 out of here. Notice that these ones you can't take a letter out too because the 15 has an x, but the 5 doesn't. So those ones you can only take a number out of that second set. Okay, now we're going to start by rewriting with on the outside what we divided by. So 1x goes on the outside, and then 3x squared divided by 1x is going to give me a 3x. Plus 1x divided by 1x just gives me a 1. And then we're going to say plus, and whatever I divided by on my second set. Well, I divided my second set by 5, so I'm going to say plus 5, start a new set of parentheses. 15x divided by 5 is going to give me a 3x. And then 5 divided by 5 is going to give me a 1. Okay, and now I can check to make sure that they match. Do I have 3x plus 1 and 3x plus 1? If you do, you know you did it right. Okay, so my first set is going to be 3x plus 1, and I'm just going to write that one time. And then my next one is going to be whatever was on the outside. So 1x plus 5. That's your final answer. Okay, we're going to move along by finding our A or B and our C. So my A, remember, if there's no number in front of your x squared, it's a 1. My B is going to be an 8, and my C is a 7. I'm going to do my x. I'm going to multiply my A times my C. Oops, I did the wrong color again. Let's make that yellow. So my A times my C, and that's going to go on the top. So 7 times 1 is 7, and then my B is my bottom. So my 8 is going to go right there on the bottom. Okay, now I'm going to find all the factors of 7. Well, I know only 1 times 7 equals 7, and I also know that 1 plus 7 equals 8. So I can have my 1 here and my 7 there. Now I'm going to rewrite, and I'm going to replace this 8x with this 1x plus 7x. I'm going to start at the beginning, and it's just an x squared. So I'm going to start with x squared plus, here's where I replace 1x plus 7x, and then I end with my c, plus 7. I'm going to group these two, and group these two. X squared and 1x, well, I know I can take an x out of here and an x out of here. And 7 and 7, I know I can take a 7 out of there and a 7 out of there. Okay, so now I'm going to take my first set, and that's going to come on the outside. So I divide it by an x, so my x goes on the outside. So x squared divided by x leaves me with 1x, plus 1x divided by x, that's just going to leave me with a 1. Plus my 7 goes on the outside because I divided by a 7. And 7x divided by 7, that's going to give me a 1 and my x left. And then 7 divided by 7 is going to give me a 1. Okay, so let's look. Do my insides match? I have x plus 1 here. And here I have 1x plus 1. Well, remember, you can have that 1 before that x or not before that x. It doesn't matter. You can have it or you don't really necessarily need it, but if you want to put it there so they're the same, you can. So really 1x plus 1 is the same as x plus 1. So do my insides match? Yep, they sure do. So now I can go ahead and rewrite what was on the inside, x plus 1 for my first set. And remember, my second set comes from what's on the outside. So on the outside, I have x plus 7. Now let's do the same thing for number 4. I'm going to identify my A, my B, and my C. So A equals 1, B equals 5, and C equals 6. I'm going to set up my x. I want my A times my C. So I have my A times my C. That's going to go on top. So I need my 6 on top. And then my B bottom. 5 is going to go right here. Okay, find all my factors of 6. I know 1 times 6 is 6. And I know 2 times 3 is 6. Well, the only two that will multiply to 6 but add to 5 are 2 and 3. So I'm going to have a 2 here and a 3 here. I'm going to rewrite, and I'm going to replace my B factor with those two right there. Okay, so I start at the beginning, x squared plus, now I'm replacing 2x plus 3x, and then I end with my C value, plus 6. I'm going to group these two and group those two. X squared and 2x, I can take an x out of here and an x out of here. And really, if it's an x, it's really a 1x, right? And 3 and 6, I can divide this by a 3 and this by a 3. Okay, so my 1x is on the outside, so I'm going to put that one right there. X squared divided by x, I just have one of those left, plus 2x divided by 1x. 2 divided by 1 is 2, and then those x's cancel out, so that's just going to leave it as x plus 2. I'm going to say plus, and there's a 3 on the bottom, so I'm going to say 3 and start my new set of parentheses. 3x divided by 3 is going to give me a 1x. And then 6 divided by 3 is going to give me a 2. Okay, so just like before, we want to make sure that our insides match. So I have x plus 2 here. I have 1x plus 2 here. Remember that you really do have a 1 in front. Even if you're not showing it, it is really there. So 1x plus 2 and 1x plus 2, yep, they match. So I'm going to write that 1x plus 2 and close it. And then my other set comes from the outside, whatever I have right here and right here. So I'm going to have 1x plus 3 and then close. All right, we're going to start by identifying our A, our B, and our C. So A equals 3. B equals, remember, if you have that negative in front, you have to take that. And if there's no number in front of that x value, there's really a 1. So my B is going to equal a negative 1. So I'm going to put negative 1 there, and then my C is also a negative value. So I'm going to put my C as a negative 2. Okay, now I'm going to set up my x. I'm going to multiply my A times my C. And those go on top. So 3 times negative 2 is going to give me a negative 6. And then I'm going to find my B bottom, which is a negative 1. I'm going to find all my factors of 6. So I know 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and that is it. Okay, remember that little trick I showed you that if your bottom number is a negative, so when we're looking here, if this is a negative number, that means your bigger of the two has to be negative. Okay, so I know that this one would have to be negative and this one would have to be negative. Okay, so 1 plus a negative 6 is going to give me a negative 5. So that's not going to work. And if I have 2 plus a negative 3, that will give me a negative 1. So I know that these two are what I'm looking for. So I'm going to put my 2 here and my negative 3 there. Okay, now I'm going to start by rewriting and replacing these two where that negative 1 was. So I have 3x squared plus 2x minus 3x minus 2. So I'm going to group these two and group these two. Okay, so when I'm thinking of 3x and 2x, I know that they both can be divided by a 1x. And here comes a little trick. Okay, so if you have a negative right here, you always, always, always have to divide your second set by a negative. So if I have a negative in front, then this and this have to be divided by a negative as well. Okay, so 3 and 2, they both have a 1 in common. So I'm going to divide those by a negative 1. I'm going to start by taking I'm dividing my first set by, and they're going on the outside. So I'm going to pull that 1x out. 3x divided by 1x is going to give me a 3x. Plus 2 divided by 1 is a 2, and those x's cancel each other out. Now I'm taking what's on my second set, and because it's a negative 1, I'm going to put a negative 1 here. And before we were putting plus whatever that second set was, but now we have to say minus because it's a negative. So negative 1, and then I'm going to start my parentheses. Negative 3 divided by a negative 1, that's going to turn into a positive. Remember, a negative and a negative turn into a positive. So that's going to leave me a 3x. And then a negative and a negative also turn into a positive. So this is going to turn into a plus. And 2 divided by 1 is 2. Okay, so now I'm going to check, do my insides match? 3x plus 2, 3x plus 2. Yep, that looks pretty good. So my first set's going to be 3x plus 2. And my second is going to be what's left on the outside. So I have a 1x and I have a minus 1. So 1x minus 1. And there I'm done. Now let's look at number 6. Number 6, my A equals 2, my B equals 9, my C equals negative 5. So now I'm going to multiply my A times my C. So negative 5 times 2, it's going to give me a negative 10. And then my B goes on the bottom. So my 9 goes down below. So I'm thinking all the factors of 10. Well, I know 1 and 10, 2 and 5. 3 won't go in there, 4 won't go in there, back at 5. Okay, so now here comes the trick. So my top is a negative 10, but my bottom is a positive 9. Because that bottom's a positive 9, I know that one of my numbers, or my smaller number, has to be the negative one. So one of these have to be negative because my 9 is positive on the bottom. The smaller of the two numbers is going to be negative. Okay, so either this one's going to be negative or this one. Well, they both could be negative, but we're either going to use the negative 1 and 10 or the negative 2 and 5. Well, if we want to get to a positive 9, negative 1 plus 10 will give you that positive 9. So I'm going to say negative 1 here and 10 here. And now we're going to take these two right here and replace that 9x. Okay, so I'm going to start at the beginning. I have 2x squared plus, oops, sorry, not plus 1x. We're not going to add it because it's a negative 1. So I'm going to say minus 1x plus 10x, and then end with my c, negative 5. I'm going to group those first two, group those second two. 2x squared and 1x, they both have a 1x in them. And then 10x and negative 5, they both have a 5 in them. Okay, I'm going to take what I'm dividing by to come out first. So I'm going to take that 1x, that's going on the outside. Start my parentheses, 2x squared divided by 1x. Well, 2 divided by 1 is 2. And x squared divided by x is just going to leave me with an x. And negative 1 divided by 1 is a negative 1. And then x divided by x cancels out. Okay, and then I'm going to say plus, because I divided by a 5, plus 5. And 10 divided by 5 is 2. And I still have an x. And then negative 5 divided by 5 is going to give me a negative 1. So now do my insides match. 2x minus 1, 2x minus 1. Yep, so let's make that our first set. 2x minus 1. And our second set comes from what's out front, 1x plus 5. 1x plus 5. All right, number 7, we're going to first identify our A, our B, and our C. So A equals 1, B equals 8, C equals 15. Set up my X. I'm going to find my product of my A times my C. So 15 times 1 is 15. B bottom, so this 8 is going to go down here. So put 8 here. I'm going to find all my factors of 15. It's 1 and 15, 2, no, 3 and 5, 4 no, 5 no. Well, 5, yes, we already have 5. So we're good there. Okay, so they're all going to be positive because my 15 is positive and my 8 is positive. So what two numbers will add up to that 8, that 3, and that 5? I'm going to put my 3 over here, my 5 here. I'm going to rewrite, and I'm going to replace this 8x with this 3x and that 5x. I'm going to start at the beginning with my squared. So I have x squared plus 3x plus 5x plus 15. I'm going to group these two and group those two. X squared and 3x, I can take an x out of both of them. And 5x and 15, I can take a 5 out of both of them. Okay, my x is going to come out front. X squared divided by x, I still have 1x left. And 3x divided by x, I still have that 3. Okay, plus 5 comes out front because I divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, and I still have an x. Plus 15 divided by 5, so plus 3. So now I'm going to look, do my insides match. So I have x plus 3 here and 1x plus 3. Remember, you still, even if it's not showing, you do have a 1 out front. So yes, our insides do match. So I'm going to rewrite that, 1x plus 3, put it in parentheses. And then I'm going to take the outsides. So this x plus 5. And that is going to go right next to it, x plus 5. All right, last one. Identify A, B, and our C. So my A equals 1, my B equals 3, and my C equals negative 10. Set up my x. I need my A times my C. So 1 times negative 10 is a negative 10, so I'm going to put that on top. My B bottom is a 3. So I need to put a 3 on the bottom. Okay, so now I'm thinking multiples of, or sorry, not multiples, factors of 10, 1 and 10, 2 and 5, 3 won't go in, 4 won't go in, I'm back at 5. Okay, so now my 10 is negative, but my 3 is positive. So because that 3 is a positive number, I know that one of these has to be negative. Okay, so one of those is going to be a negative. Oops. So either I'm going to have a negative 1 or a negative 2. So negative 1 plus 10 will give me 9, so that won't work. But negative 2 plus 5 will give me a positive 3. So I'm going to have my negative 2 here and my 5 there. Now I'm going to rewrite, and I'm going to replace 3x with that negative 2x and a 5x. I'm going to start at the beginning. And I have x squared plus, whoops, sorry, not plus because it's a negative 2. So we're not going to say, whoops, that's not the eraser. I want to erase all of that. There we go. Well, I'm just going to erase. Let's just start over. Okay, so I'm going to start with x squared. And because this is a negative 2, I'm going to say minus 2x plus 5x, and then I'm going to end with my c, which is a negative 10. I'm going to group these two together and group those two together. So x squared and negative 2x, I'm going to divide this by x and this by x. And 5 and negative 10, I can take a 5 out of both of those. So my x comes out front. X squared divided by x is x. Negative 2x divided by x is going to be a negative 2. Plus 5 goes out front. 5x divided by 5 gives me a 1x. And negative 10 divided by 5 gives me a negative 2. So now I'm checking. I have x minus 2 and 1x minus 2. Those are the same. So I'm going to say x minus 2 And you can write it either way. You could say x minus 2, or you could say 1x minus 2. It's the same thing. And then I have what's out front. It's going to be my second set. X plus 5. That concludes your notes for LT3. If you have questions, please let us know.